It may be time to start buying this Lane Kiffin to Florida smoke, and I'm here for it.
Get ready for the 3-point stance. 3 different minds, 3 different opinions. 3 dudes talking ball. It's Kenton. It's Jay. It's Zach. Time to bring the heat, boys.
Yes, it's the 3-point stance. I'm Zach Blackerby. Jay Smith, he's back. Kenton Gibbs, all hanging out with you. We're going to talk about ESPN's midseason top 25 players list. It's interesting, as well as some of the most important games this weekend. Which coaches are on the hot seat? And what is Lane Kiffin to Florida? What would that mean? What would that mean? Kenton, you're seeing the smoke everywhere. You're seeing the smoke everywhere. Could Kiffin leave Ole Miss and go to Florida if they fire Billy Napier?
I'm going to tell you this, and I want to make this clear, okay? This smoke started like most other smoke in college football. It started the same way as the is Pitt going to the Big 12 smoke, but it also started in the same way as the Cam Ward to Miami smoke, the message boards. That's where this started at. And let's be very clear about that, to not say, hey, I have inside information and knowledge, and I've heard under good authority, because I haven't. I haven't heard that. However, this is gaining some real traction. And as we all know, it only takes about 2 good minutes. It only takes about 3 bad games in November, looking at you, Mr. William Napier, for it to go from a little bit of smoke to a little bit of new paycheck and buyouts going on around there. So when I look at this, I say this could be very legitimate, because all of us have talked about, hey, Billy's not going to make it through November. He's not going to make it. That is the toughest schedule. I love me some DJ Lagway. I think that that's going to be a future Heisman winner, future SEC player of the year, all that good stuff. I really do think that much of him. I think he is special on a level that we have not seen in some time. But with that being said, he's not going to have that head coach. So I think that this is some smoke that I wouldn't wholly dismiss. I'll say that much. I would not, because Lane Kiffin is a proven commodity. And at Ole Miss, I believe he's making about $8.5 million or whatever. Billy Napier was not that coming in from Louisiana Lafayette. And yet you saw what he was able to pull, which I believe was about 7.5 or so out of Florida.
Yeah. The thing about Florida and Napier is interesting because, like, Jay, I don't think Florida is an inherently awful football team. They're not great. But a lot of people are picking them to beat Kentucky, myself included, tomorrow. And then you look at this, okay, they play FSU to end the season. I'm picking Florida in that game right now. It's like, can they find one more? Can they find one more game? And all of a sudden they're 6-6. They're going to a bowl game. And then the question is like, okay, do you fire Billy Napier because you knew how tough his schedule was going into it? Do you need to make a change? I think that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, to me, I get that the schedule is a gauntlet, but Napier, this is how many years he's been on the job, and it's just been subpar every single year. Like, he hasn't had a year in there that's actually been good to where you could be like, this is a bump in the road season, we'll be fine. No, it's just looked bad every single season he's been there. It's been little mental things. And to me, the Lane Kiffin smoke that is starting to, build itself into like a little, house. Somebody out there on the campgrounds just starting up their own little fire with him. It's fascinating because I look at this all right, who's the next quarterback at Ole Miss? So I had to look it up. You have Austin Sims. He's the kid that reclassified not 1, but 2 classes. He went from a very old 2025 guy to a very young 2023 recruit. And he's played a little mop-up duty. So, but then you have DJ Lagway. Who would work even better in a Lane Kiffin offensive system? It's probably going to be Lagway. That would be some fun stuff to watch. And so to me, if there is a possibility that Lane Kiffin could be the coach there, that could probably salvage that entire recruiting class that Napier brought in over the last 2 years.
Yeah, it would save a lot of what they've done. But I don't know. It might be too late at that point. I mean, anytime you see a coach get let go in this transfer portal era, I mean, all these players jump pretty quick as soon as that window opens up for them. But if they hear an offensive coach like Lane Kiffin might be coming, do they stick around and wait and see a little bit longer?
If there's a contingency plan, I can see it. And to be honest, let's be real. Ole Miss has been a big time disappointment this year. They were expected to be undefeated for the most of the season, right? The Georgia game was the one where everybody circled as, that's a possible loss. Yeah. This schedule is so favorable, but then you lose at home to Kentucky, and then you lose a overtime game to LSU that you could have probably won. Yeah, now the questions are, can they win out their last 5 games? And I don't know. There's a good chance that they could lose 3 on accident. The Kentucky game told us everything we need to know about them.
Yeah, if somebody tells you who they are, you better listen. Kenton, the interesting thing about this from the Lane Kiffin Ole Miss point of view is, like, you entered this season thinking this was kind of the ceiling. Like, this was kind of the opportunity at Ole Miss. And if the ceiling, arguably the best roster, that's what our host, Stephen Willis, host of Locked On Ole Miss, said all summer, like, this is the best roster in the history of Ole Miss football. I think he's right, by the way. If you can't make the playoff in this situation, in this climate, when there's 12 teams that make it now, like, what are you doing? Like, it seems like he's almost capped out at Ole Miss.
Well, I think that you have as Yoda would say, within the answer lies the question, right? Or that's what we're looking at here, or within the question lies the answer. Because
you just quoted Yoda?
Well, no. I'm saying as Yoda would say, because it sounds like something he would say. I'm not a Star Wars. I know he talks in very fractured and funny ways. Let me make that clear. But with that being said, I look at this and I say, you're absolutely right. What if this is the best that Ole Miss can do? What if this is it? What if this is the height, the ceiling? You're never going to get better than this. Yeah. Well, you know who does have a ceiling that's above this? Florida. And I say all the time, there are realistically, and I mean this with everything that's in me, there are realistically 10, maybe 12, if I'm being very generous, teams in America where 8 wins will not be enough year in and year out. But everywhere else, 8 wins a year, they'll build you a statue and rename the stadium after you. Ole Miss is one of those places. 8 wins a year, and the occasional good peak year, they'll rename it Lane Kiffin Stadium one day if he so chooses that. But we all know Lane Kiffin. We know Lane Kiffin wants the biggest time job. He wants the biggest front office. He wants to be the boldest, the baddest. It's almost like he's the exact antithesis of his father, who was this very seemingly, at least compared to his son, understated guy. He's the exact opposite of that. He wants the grandiose things, and he knows grandiose ain't coming to Mississippi. Oxford is not going to be as grandiose as Gainesville. Never has been, never will be in terms of college football.
Yeah. So obviously Billy Napier is on the hot seat. Who else throughout college football's seat keeps getting warmer and warmer as the season goes on? Our takes next, right here on the 3-Point Stance. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your house. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. And if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging, all for free. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/locked-on. That's HIMS.com/locked-on for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/locked-on. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies on product and prescription plan. So when you look all throughout college football, several seats are getting warmer and warmer, hotter and hotter. I mean, there's Mac Brown at North Carolina. There's Dave Aranda at Baylor. Which seat is getting warmer and warmer that intrigues you the most, Kenton?
Mute it.
Kenton, that's the second day in a row you've muted yourself.
I am sorry. I try not to interrupt you while you're telling everybody how you treat your ED, Zach. I'm sorry. My bad. But in other news, in all seriousness, you talk about Dave Aranda being a name that's on the hot seat,
Yeah.
and he hasn't cooled it off at all. But I think that there are some other coaches around the country that their seat is very low key, very understated. You've cooled it a little bit, but you're a couple losses away from your seat lighting on fire. And I want to say one that's going to surprise everybody because this team has played well. They just got out of the game of the century. Ryan Day's seat is 2 games away from being on fire. And I know people are going to look at me and say I'm crazy. I believe that Ohio State is a really, really good team, and I don't think that his seat will heat up. I'm not saying that. If they lose to the school up north, as they like to call them, the University of Michigan, one more again, it's like when you run an inside out of the house, the guy will say, hey, run back in here one more again. Let my hair out and let my air out one more again, and you're done for. You know what time it is. I think Ryan Day is very much so in that same spot in terms of if that one game was to go wrong. But if we're talking about who we're looking at and we're saying to ourselves, oh, yeah, you're buddy, you watch yourself right now, Lincoln Riley, that team has to play with some pride. That team has to figure out something because at this point in time, if you're USC, remember how I just talked about 10 to 12 teams where 8 games a year ain't enough?
Yeah.
USC happens to be
one of them.
in that 10 to 12.
Right.
And Lincoln ain't even getting them 8 consistently. It doesn't feel like their road to 8 gets any easier with a consistent Big Ten schedule. So, Lincoln, brother, that seat, I could, as French Montana say, it's hot as fish grease, okay? You better get yourself together. Lincoln, or you're going to be right back relegated to offensive coordinator duty somewhere.
Yeah, Jay, I'm sure you hate that. I'm sure you're just so shaken up over that.
Yeah, man, it's just heartbreaking. No, that's one that I did not have on my bingo card this quickly. I figured the way the schedule is laid out that USC Lincoln Riley would have more time. On top of that, one seat that I think is flaming right now and would be the biggest shocker of a potential firing after an amazing season is going to be Mike Norvell. 1-5 at Florida State this year after being undefeated.
Yeah.
Looking like all of your pickups in the transfer portal were, man, that's going to hurt, especially because they've tried to focus hard on their actual recruiting class. They gave Norvell that raise because I think his agent is Jimmy Sexton, the legend in the SEC of agents. And he went to Alabama and pretended like he was going to, pitch Norvell's name and told Florida State, hey, Bama said that they interested. Talk to me. And at this point, Florida State fans are like, dang it, I wish they would have took this man off our hands. But yeah, he's one that with the way the season has gone, they should be 5-1 right now. This is an embarrassment. That's a possibility of a big one. And the Ryan Day take, isn't far-fetched. There's a good chance that they lose 2 games this season, and that second loss is the one that gets that man fired.
Yeah, he's almost it's almost like it changes the perception of him because the roster is so good. And it's like,
so good.
If you can't win with this, like, what are we doing here?
It's like you said with Ole Miss. This is their best roster, like in school history, and they've already lost 2 games that they probably shouldn't have lost.
Yeah,
with Ohio State may not be the best, but
it's a good roster. It's top 3 roster in college football, and if you can't win, it's like, what are we paying you for? This is your job, is to maximize your talent. You're not doing it. All right, so let's pivot to some of the most important games this weekend. I mean, obviously. You've got the big ones in the SEC with Alabama heading to Tennessee. You've got Georgia heading to Texas. We've talked about those throughout this week. What are some other games with playoff implications you guys are saying, hey, I'm paying attention to this one?
Yeah, so for me, it has to be Louisville, Miami, the Snellenberger Bowl. The Snellenberger Bowl is important because, number one, any game played for a trophy I love. But more importantly,
yeah, it's true.
When I look at this game, Miami is in the driver's seat for that ACC spot. Let's be very real about that, or for one of the 2 ACC spots. Yeah. However, if things are to unravel and they start here, that is going to be a very pivotal game in terms of people looking up and saying, who are you? How sure are we about you? And also, this could be Louisville's path to potentially carving out, hey, maybe a third ACC team got something to say. I'm going to walk up there like Andre 3000 at the Source Awards and say, hey, the ACC got something to say. This would be the moment for a third team to kind of step in and make that claim.
Louisville's got the opportunity. I mean, they play number 6 Miami, then they go to Boston College. That's winnable. They go to Clemson.
And I was just about to say they have Clemson as well. And that's why I say
who has a number next to their name.
This is a moment for Louisville where, as disappointing as the season has been so far, in terms of your 2 losses coming from a comedy of errors, right? Mm-hmm. Like, don't get me wrong, SMU looked like the better team to a certain extent. Their loss against Notre Dame, you cannot say that happens without Louisville shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again. So you look at this as a moment with major playoff implications, and a lot like we talked about Tennessee and them before. This is a game where if Louisville wins it, it doesn't put you in automatic. But if you lose it, you're out. There's nothing you can do. Beating Clemson is good. Congratulations on getting a better bowl game, but you're not making it.
Yeah. Jay, what about you? What's a game that you're paying attention to?
I'm going to be honest. I'm not only paying attention to games, but I'm paying attention to teams. But one game I'm looking at this weekend is Army versus East Carolina, and I'm also keeping my eye on Navy. The service academies are ranked for the first time at the same time, I think, ever.
Yeah.
And you got Navy preparing to play Notre Dame in a couple of weeks, and if they pull that upset off, ooh, man, it's going to be an interesting conversation, because what makes it even more intriguing is that the Army-Navy game is after Conference Championship Week. So then, how does that work? How much chaos are we going to see in this 12-game playoff if both of these teams show up undefeated and play their game afterwards? Like, how wild is it going to be? That's the beauty of this. Like, a lot of people were saying, well, everybody's going to have an opportunity to get it. The beauty is that we're going to be arguing about the 10th, 11th, and 12th teams, just like we was arguing about the 4th. It's going to be glorious. But I'm keeping my eye on both of them because I'm really curious to see, can they make it undefeated before their matchup? And to be honest, the way they're both playing, that's a possibility.
Yeah, they got a shot. Mine's being played tonight. BYU and Oklahoma State. I think BYU has a path to being undefeated, and I don't think they're getting the coverage that they deserve. And they've had some solid quality wins so far. But after Oklahoma State, this is who they play, guys. Note, they're undefeated currently. They're 6-0. After Oklahoma State tonight, they play UCF, Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. I don't see where the loss is on this schedule.
A real gauntlet.
Right. I think BYU is going to be a top 10 undefeated team heading into the Big 12 championship, and that may be enough to make them a playoff team. I think this is the toughest game left on their schedule tonight.
Yeah.
I look at their schedule and I say, hey, this is going to be a little bit of a cakewalk, but I do think that there is something so interesting about what Jay said here for a minute, because these service academies being good is not only insane, but I think that there's a moment here to talk about all of the Power Five. You've got the service academies playing well. You've got Memphis out here balling. You've got Aston Johnty and Boise State up there balling.
Cooking.
They said we make more than good potatoes in Idaho. We're going to cook you with our running back, not just some canola oil. They are showing out. The group of 5 right now is showing why they should be relevant and all that. And I'm going to tell you, I really and truly think, hey, if we are talking about the ACC being down, if we are talking about the Big 12 having a lot of teams that, it's tough. It's tough. If we are looking at the SEC and complete chaos happening where you see multiple teams drop out, you want to talk about some playoff implications. If you have multiple undefeated or one-loss group of 5 teams, listen.
No.
Say what you want. What you want. But I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in I want to see you play the games, and winning the games has to mean something. And I'm sorry to tell you, if I see multiple 3-loss, potentially a 4-loss SEC team or 2 that we're even discussing over a 1-loss or undefeated group of 5, stop it. Get on out of here. There's no way.
Yeah, I don't know how many 3-loss teams you're going to see, but I think you're going to see several 2-loss teams, and I think you're only going to see one group of 5 team. And I don't think it matters what happens. I don't think they're going to put 2 of them in there.
But there should be.
Yeah, I don't see
There
anything.
should be. There should be. I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of chaos. I'm a big fan of anarchy. I'm a big fan of Ian Johnson and that Boise State team. They couldn't beat the mighty Oklahoma Sooners. They couldn't do it. No, that little old Utah team, you can't beat Nick Saban. You can't beat Bama. What do you mean? All of a sudden, when you put these teams in the game, and I don't want to say it, but I got to say it, that lowly UCF team, they're only undefeated because they play nobody. Auburn is going to take care of them. Auburn's going to show us all what they are actually.
I thought you were going to pass it up, Kenton. I thought you were going to pass it up.
You know I couldn't, Zach. You know, anytime I got to.
I felt you walk past me. I'm like, I thought I was safe, but I'm not.
Listen, Grandma Doors, you know I love you. I know she's listening. She's a big fan of the Tide. So she always tell me, Ken, make sure you let that Auburn boy know. I'm going to let you know. You know, you're the Auburn boy, so I got to let you know. It's for granted. It's for granted. But in all fairness, I think that if we're looking at all of these schedules and we're talking about teams having potential cakewalks, if you have a potential cakewalk and you stumble once or twice, well, what the hell is the difference between that and a group of 5 team running the table against their alleged cakewalk?
Well, not all cakewalks are the same. I think that would be the first thing.
Now we're splitting hairs about cakewalks.
I think a cakewalk in the Big 12 is different than a cakewalk in the AAC. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say.
I think it is a little bit because a cakewalk is a cakewalk. If we're talking about... I have seen some Power 5 schedules, or Power 4 schedules, rather, particularly in the ACC and Big 12. I'm just going to be honest about that. They're the little brothers of the group right now, particularly in those 2 conferences that I look at and I say, that is comparable to like a so-so group of 5 schedule. Not a great one, not a terrible one.
I don't
so-so, maybe a little above average.
All right. We may jump into that next week.
Listen, all I'm saying is, give these group of 5 guys a shot, and they will surprise you. They'll surprise you. You know,
They got their spot. They're going to get one of the 12 spots. Let's see what happens.
The games have to matter. And if we're talking, hey, how many two-loss teams should get in because these 2 losses are good losses, you know what's better than 2 losses? None. You know what's better than 2 losses? 1, potentially 2, Oregon. If one of the service academies go undefeated and Boise State is a 1-loss team but they're only lost to Oregon, are you telling me 2 teams shouldn't get in, Zach? Are you telling me that right now?
I mean, there's context that matters. Like, we need to see who else would be considered, but my gut reaction is there would be 11 other teams that would make more sense. That's just my gut reaction.
That's the gut reaction. But again, we got to get into Tina Marie said, I'm talking square biz, and that's what I'm going to talk to you right now. We got to get down to the square biz of this thing.
Yeah.
And again, you talk about resumes, what's impressive, what's not impressive, all that good stuff. If you tell me that a team, and you want to talk about a good loss, your only loss being to Oregon, and you get left out of the playoff, what the hell else are they supposed to do? Leave their conference to have a shot at getting in?
Well, I mean, the Pac is kind of calm right now. They may as well go to the Pac 5, Pac 6.
Yeah, I
mean, I think
the whole
six-pack, that's
what are they supposed to do? Leave your conference? Like a few years ago, I think that would have been ridiculous. But now it's like, yeah,
it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Pac-12 did. Is they left their conference.
Listen, but with the Pac-12, everything worked out right, so that nobody had to pay any money to leave. The TV deal was up. Nobody renewed. Everybody left free and clear, okay? You can't just – there's money in this thing, you know? It's deeper than just, hey, I like you, you like me. This is what gives me a shot.
We got to move on.
I got to think millions.
Yeah. All right, ESPN put out a top 25 midseason player list. Very interesting. That's coming up right here on the 3-Point Stance. Guys, today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I'm going to run a few picks by you guys. Let's do some rapid-fire picks here. Number 7, Alabama goes to number 11, Tennessee. Alabama -3.5. Where are we going?
Oh, I'm going Bama.
Quick.
I got to get a play at the family reunion. Go Bama all day long.
All right. Number 8, LSU, just a 2.5-point favorite at Arkansas.
That's terrifying. Arkansas is probably going to cover that spread and win it in an upset.
Give me Arkansas outright, baby.
I'll take LSU in this one. FanDuel is begging us to take LSU, and I'm going to do it. Number 5, Georgia at top ranked. Texas, Jay, I can't wait. You're wearing the Texas shirt, Jay, so I assume you're taking Texas -5?
That's disrespectful, and I hate the fact that you tried to call that out here. Why are you doing me this way? Go Dogs.
Hey, listen, Jay ain't wearing that Texas shirt because they're a bad team. Hook them. Give me the horns, baby.
Yeah, I'm taking them too. Hey, anybody can go to FanDuel.com right now, and you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. All right, final few minutes on today's edition of the 3-Point Stance. So ESPN put out their top 25 players at midseason. And there's some interesting names. I don't hate the list, but I do think it's interesting. And so they have GNT as the number one player on the list, which is fine. The Boise State running back, Cam Ward, Miami's quarterback at 2, and then Travis Hunter at 3. But after that, it gets interesting. They've got Dylan Gabriel, Oregon's quarterback at 5, Trey Harris, the wide receiver at Ole Miss at 7. Who are some names on here that's kind of standing out to you as far as too high or too low? Kenton, let's start with you.
I look at this thing and I say, Will Campbell has not been good. He has not been dominant. He has been great. He has been the guy.
Offensive tackle at LSU.
Yes, the offensive tackle from LSU, Will Campbell. He has put guys in body bags. I mean, he is out there. I remember everybody was talking about the electric freshman from South Carolina. They were talking about Kennard from South Carolina. Hey, these two edge rushers, they're going to give him some fits. They're gonna show. Will Campbell going to get a chance. He said he would still be alive right now if you fellas ain't gas him up. He had to hit us with the little dirt, okay? This man, he has been absolutely mauling dudes all year in the passing game, in the running game. If you see that big man coming your way, get out of the way, because whoever is over him and trying to get a rush off, you're done for. You're eliminated. Don't worry about it. Pack in the mail. It's gone.
Kyle Kennard, the edge from South Carolina, 14th on this list, by the way.
Which is bananas. That's two really good edges. God, South Carolina's defense is a lot better than people give them credit for. Yeah. Ryan Williams at number 9 is kind of a fascinating spot for him. And then you got Jeremiah Smith. Like, this influx of freshman wide receivers that have come into this league and they're just showing out. Man, the future's bright. We'll say that, especially in the wide receiver room. But that's pretty high. But I think one that got me, that I am very happy for them, shout out to Indiana and the Hoosiers. Curtis Rourke out here at the number 15 spot, 1,700 yards passing, 14 touchdowns. They're undefeated. Look at that. Look at that. Somebody give them guys a cake. That's beautiful. And the fact that he's above Shadur Sanders makes it even more hilarious.
Should Shadur Sanders be on this list?
Hey, Zach, don't play with
me. Yeah.
Don't play with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How did listen? I'm gonna say this. Everybody likes to pretend like Colorado is either the world beaters, greatest team in the world, or they're terrible. They're somewhere in between. And Shadur is one of the reasons that pushes them, that gives anybody any ammunition to say this is a good team.
Yeah.
That is a pro quarterback if I have ever seen one.
Yeah. 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns. Yeah. He's putting up numbers.
He can do it on schedule. He can do it off schedule. He can do it with a broken play. He can do it with 1, 2, 3. This is my read. That young man is special and definitely belongs on this list. Now, there are some guys on this list where I'm like,
who doesn't belong on this list, Kenton?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Listen. I don't want to call any of these young men out right now in terms
I'm asking
of,
hey, you need to call some of them out.
Call them out, Kenton. One of us.
I'm trying to be generous.
Do it.
But the defensive back from Cal that's on here, I hate to go after an ACC guy. I love the Cal rhythm. I know they're going to come at me. I know they are. 6 interceptions is a big deal. Don't get me wrong. Peyton Thorne threw him how many of them?
Come on, Kenton. Are you kidding me?
I can't help it.
He did say he didn't want to do you this way. And you asked for it.
I tried to avoid
He tried.
Listen.
You wake up before we were recording this is like, how can I twist this on Auburn? Just real quick.
Listen, I'm saying is this.
That's why you wanted to talk about this list for the last few days. I get it now.
All I'm saying is this. There are multiple other players, defenders in particular, from the ACC that I look at, and I'm like, they're doing crazy things too. Donovan Ezeraku, Paul Riley, who had how many sacks last night? 4 of them things. But
a lot.
Here's the interesting thing about that. That wasn't even his first 4-sack game this year.
It's insane.
The kid's so crazy. So I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself when I look at these teams, hey, don't get me wrong, 6 interceptions is great. Don't get me wrong, all of them weren't from Peyton Thorne. He's played some good ball in multiple games. I'm not taking nothing away from him. Not taking nothing away from him. Yeah. But with that in mind, you have to give a look to some of these big fellas, some of these edge rushers, some of these guys getting it done in the trenches that without them, their teams don't move in the same way. Their teams don't have a shot in a lot of these games, but they have because of these guys.
Right. All right, that's another week and another edition of the 3-Point Stance in the books. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. For your second listen, go check out our buddy Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On College Football, on the same YouTube channel and on the same audio feed. For Kenton Gibbs and Jay Smith, I'm Zach Blackerby. This has been the 3-Point Stance.